Seven things everyone should know about China. Hello guys, we're from the channel One More Curiosity. The country is giant and the culture is ancient. The Chinese claim to be the only continuous civilizations in the world for more than 5,000 years. Really, I know very little about China. Anyway, we shared in this article 7 things that I believe everyone should know about this Eastern Empire. Number 1. China has always been the world power. We study very little about this history of China in Western schools. This is still a legacy of our colonization. Since we studied the great conquest of the country of the so-called Old Continent and the antiquity of Egypt and Greece. I was amazed when I saw a graph showing that China, since the birth of Christ, had the greatest generation of wealth in the world until the 19th century. One war marked this change, the Opium War of 1839. The Chinese Empire tried to stop the opium trade from England to Chinese. Realizing how that drug was killing the population, the war was bloody, although China was the civilization that invented the gunpowder. It had not been inserted in the European Industrial Revolution and therefore had evolved its firepower less. In order not to be totally decimated, it made a deal with England, ceding some port regions, among them Hong Kong, a problem that persists until today. After this defeat, there were still some other unsuccessful battles against Japan. These marked the years between 1839 and 1949 as a century of Chinese humiliation, leading the population to extreme poverty. Number 2. From world factory to technological benchmark. In 2013, President Xi Jinping understood that the country needed to invest in technology to become a competitive nation for the future. They began to fight piracy. Shopping malls were shut down by the police, and corruption, with thousands of people going missing. They decided to support some sectors that would enable this change in the country. Among them, artificial intelligence. China has the goal of being a world power in this area by 2030. In fact, they choose to support 4 companies that were already doing good work in this area: Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, and Iflatech. These companies have all the necessary support for the government and a commitment to keep the technology open to other Chinese companies, thus creating a differentiated and valuable ecosystem in the country. While the West is implementing very strict data protection laws, the famous LGBT, with billion-dollar fines for companies that have used artificial intelligence with their users' data, companies in China have virtually all of their users' data and no rules to follow. Number 3. The role of government in China. The role of government in China is fundamental to the country's evolution. In the last 30 years, we have witnessed great social ascension of humanity. More than 700 million people have left the misery zone, defined by the UN as an income of $190 per day. I was born in Steel Valley, in the interior of Minas Gerais, Brazil, and I saw the region of steel mills lose market share and shrink absurdly. On the other side of the world, in China, I understood why. The Chinese government created an industrial park for the largest steel companies in the country to operate, bearing all the cost of electricity. one of the largest costs in the sector. This incentive allows for an unbeatable price in the global competition. The country's largest company, Alibaba, started with crucial government support. Jack Ma, the richest man, and many say even more admired than the current president, worked in China's foreign trade ministry before founding the company. A genius, no doubt. Seeing the internet in the USA, he started in 1995 to develop websites so that local company could sell products online to foreign countries. A decisive factor to change the history of his life, the company and the country, when Yahoo, the biggest technological company at the time in the early 2000s, wanted to enter China. The government demanded that in order to have operations in the country, they had to choose a Chinese company and invest $1 billion for a value of $5 billion. Number 4. Chinese are not global yet. During our trip, we visited the Great Wall of China and learning about its importance for the country to maintain such a large and united civilization for so long. It was more than 21,000 kilometers built in almost 2,000 years, protecting the Chinese people from being invaded by barbarians from the region. In a way, I believe that history is repeating itself. Now the wall is virtual, the Great Firewall. The Chinese government has built an online barrier that does not allow the people to access many foreign websites and apps. Thus, they filter all the information that reaches their people. And even more importantly, they block the big American companies from entering and dominating the Chinese market. People in China don't have access to Amazon, which has enabled Alibaba and JD.com to grow so much. They don't have access to Google and YouTube, enabling Baidu and Youku, nor Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, making room for Tencent WeChat, and the new Chinese meteor called TikTok, nor Netflix, having Kuai. You probably have other examples that I forgot or I was not aware of. For me to be able to access any of those sites, I need to hire a VPN service to use an IP from abroad or use my Brazilian chip with international roaming. Two options that did not work so well from there. Number 5. Make no mistake, it's not just a scale. Yes, it is only possible to create this empire by serving only the domestic market given the size of the country's population. We often think that everything in China is justified by 1.4 billion inhabitants. When we take a closer look at the numbers, we see that this may not be so. China's population is around 7 times bigger than Brazil's. Currently, in the trains around 4.7 billion technological professionals. Actually, the so-called STEAM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This is the largest in the world. Number 6. Will China dominate the world? If you put the current growth projection on the graph, you will see that China's GDP should pass the US by 2030, becoming the largest economy in the world. Of course, the US will have a decade to react, and they will try, of course. By the way, the trade sanctions that worry the whole world are on the rise. I believe that there is no way to hold back. After all, China is just going to return to the place that has always been in history, with the exception of the 20th century, as the largest economy in the world. Now, we will dominate other countries not only economically, but also influence their internal politics and transmit their culture? Will everyone in the world in a few decades have to speak Chinese instead of English if they want to venture into international lands? If you analyze China's history, they have been one to colonize other civilizations. They have always seen themselves as the center of the world. No wonder China's name in Chinese is Zhouguo, Zhong, middle, Guo, country, which means middle country. In the northern capital, it's called Beijing. Bein, north, Jing, capital. In the southern capital is called Nanjing. Nan, south, Jing, capital. The fact is that its influence around the world increases every day, although its military power still lags behind that of the US. With a Chinese military budget of 150 billions against 600 billions for the US, we hope that we will not take a war to stop China. Number 7. What will happen when the priority of Chinese population change? Understanding the whole history, one can understand how the current party that has been in power since 1949 has popular approval. In a country where the priority of the majority of the population is to survive from hunger, the loss of privacy and the deprivation of information and global services take second place. As the population's income rises, will these other points so valued by the West begin to be desired of the Chinese people? If so, will the party be able to maintain the order and submission of its nation of over 1 billion people after the social upswing? Shanghai, with its skyscrapers, which to me seem like a piece of the US inside China, it's already changing. Now, if you like this video, leave your comment and subscribe to the channel to follow more trivia videos. See you next time.